I don't know about you, but these days it feels like the world and our lives are moving at hyperspeed. The all-new Nissan Murano is an unapologetic refuge amidst the hustle and bustle. In the Nissan Murano, you can take a beat, catch your breath, and re-energize. With its elevated modern interior and bold new exterior, this vehicle stands out. Its massaging leather-appointed seats melt away the tension of a busy day, adds to that feeling of refuge. Optional features like panoramic moonroof that adds tons of natural light to its roomy cabin, and ambient lighting sets the right vibe. So crucial in dreary winter days. The Bose premium sound system helps you escape further into your favorite music. The Nissan Murano and all its features gives you the greatest rush, while not feeling like you're rushing at all. Find your moment of calm in the all-new Nissan Murano. Drive the all-new 2025 Nissan Murano today. Features listed or available upgrades.
Hello to everybody who loves the Gorn. It's Beautiful Anonymous, 1 hour. One phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi everybody, Chris Gethard here. If you like a long intro, this week is for you. We give info on how beautifulanonymous.com is now ad-free, so actually if you're somebody who likes your episodes a little shorter, you might want to listen this week. We also talk a bunch about last week's episode, but if you just want to skip right to the phone call, you don't want to skip about 12 minutes. Skip about, 11, 12 minutes ahead. You should be right towards the beginning of the phone call. Enjoy it, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard. Welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. First thing I want to do, start with a big announcement, and then I want to talk about reaction to last week's episode, and then I want to talk about this week's episode, right? First, the big announcement is this. So, drum roll, please. You don't actually have to. Please don't have a drum roll sound effect, Andrea. So beautifulanonymous.com, I've been plugging it for a while, and it's funny because, as mentioned, it has not exploded in popularity, and as mentioned, I'm totally okay with that, 100% fine with that, but it's also presented an opportunity, and the opportunity might actually help the popularity. So when we first launched it, one of the things that we saw a lot of people saying was, hey, a lot of podcasts that I subscribe to, in subscribing, it makes them ad-free. We were in a very interesting place with that, where Andrea and I discussed, and we were a little bit between a rock and a hard place because we just signed a new contract with a new company that's representing our ad sales, and we're an independent show. So we're not part of a network that protects us or strategizes in any way. It's just me and Andrea discuss things with the show, and we follow our gut instincts. And one thing we said was we're just starting a new relationship with the ad sales team. We have to jump through a few logistical hoops to offer a free version of it. And we also are very honest. And I don't know if everybody is, but we're very honest. When advertisers ask for our numbers, we let them know the number of people that hear them. Because I think you guys know me well enough to know at this point, I'm not out here trying to trick anybody. I'm not trying to scramble and deceive anybody. We have our numbers. Our numbers are what they are. I'm proud of those numbers. And there's some advertisers that go, I understand the number of this fan base and the type of people listening, and that's what I want. I want to appeal to thoughtful people, and here's how much it costs to advertise to this many people who are of this sort of thoughtful, pleasant ilk that Beautiful Anonymous' fans are known for. And if we make the show ad-free, we have to then start doing a whole lot of math to say, actually, this is how many people hear your ads, because we're not going to be dishonest about that. We're going to let you know that some people are no longer hearing the ads. Well, guess what? When you've only got, as of this recording, 771 people subscribed, some might view that as a small number. I would also say that 771 people is a small enough number that when Andrea and I put our heads together, we both said, that's a drop in the bucket. And if it's going to be a small boutique thing, let's embrace it as a small boutique thing and give people more for their money. So yes, for anybody subscribed at beautifulanonymous.com, we are not going to go back and edit out the commercials on all the old ones. That would be a lot of work for Andrea. But moving forward, the subscriber feed will not have ads. And that is a commitment to the small, wonderful, beautiful community over at beautifulanonymous.com. So if you're somebody out there who really likes your shows ad-free, for $5 a month, you can sign up at beautifulanonymous.com. And for $10 a month, you also get the monthly number that only goes out to people at that tier. You get the follow-up call with a prior caller and other things that we're going to throw at you down the pike as things keep developing with the show. So that's the big announcement. Beautifulanonymous.com will now mean ad-free episodes. And thanks to everybody who's been supporting it. And I'm always happy to find more perks for the people throwing money in on this thing. And this is not going to stop there. I'm starting to think about merch and what that's going to mean. We're building this magazine, and huge thank you. People have been sending some heartfelt items to the P.O. Box, some shocking items, some hilarious items. And we will have a beautiful anonymous magazine version soon where I think anybody who's been supporting the show is going to go, oh yeah, this is the magazine version of the show I've been listening to for 8 years. And I'm so psyched. I'm so psyched to build it out. Every time I go to the P.O. Box, I get something that makes my jaw drop or makes me laugh. And if you want to mail something in for inclusion in the Beautiful Anonymous magazine, you can send it to me, Chris Gethard, at P.O. Box 972, New Vernon, New Jersey, 07976. That is P.O. Box 972, New Vernon, New Jersey, 07976. But I love the community aspect of the show. It keeps me going. We just passed the year anniversary of Beautiful Cononymous, and it blew me away. It didn't feel like a year. And that felt like such a high watermark of getting a community together. And it was such an amazing time. And to think that in that year, when that con was happening, I wasn't sure if the show was going to live or die. And instead we went independent. And now we have a chance to start the extra content on the subscription service. Go ad-free on the subscription service. Let's see what happens if we build a magazine. Let's see if we don't think about merch for a while so that when we bring it back, maybe we can do it in a unique way. These conversations all feel very close to my heart and to my ethics and to how I've always dreamed about doing things. And thank you all for supporting it and being a part of it. Now, last week's episode, we had our second ever hang up in the history of the show. The call felt light and fun until it didn't. The caller said that they had poor time management and had to go. And on some level, I think that's true. But as expressed in the call itself and in the intro and the aftermath, there was also a part of me that felt like maybe I had gotten a little too real in a way that the caller wasn't down with or totally anticipating. And I will tell you, seeing the comments that came in right away on it, here's one thing that I love about the community. And I saw this in the Facebook group right away. There were a lot of people there going, I don't know, like Sarah said, Chris, I don't think you pushed too hard. I felt you were treating the caller with care as you always do, but perhaps you observed something she wasn't aware of and hit one of those emotional bruises without realizing it. Aaron said, Geth, I don't think you pushed too hard on the call or anything like that. Your tone was super chill as per normal. It didn't feel like you were interrogating anyone to me. I guess maybe pointing out the nervous laugh could have hit a nerve with the caller. Like if someone's prone to nervous laughter as a way to deal with uncomfortable conversation, which I can personally very much relate to, then calling that out might have caused the person to feel self-conscious and multiplied the uncomfortable feelings, which could lead to them to want to pull the ripcord on the conversation. Andy, who, if you're not... One of the key things happening with this show for the past few years, and I've started to call it out, there's a guy named Andy. He leaves a very thoughtful comment each week. It's always a little bit philosophical. I have pieced together that Andy, it seems like grew up in America, but now lives overseas, and I get the sense that maybe the show is a little bit of a connection back, but always something that feels vaguely philosophical and poetic. My weekly Andy. Andy left another long comment that says many caring things to the caller, but also says, Chris, I think that you were doing what has worked so well for you in the past. And maybe it bit back this time. Now you know. G.I. Joe. which is, of course, a reference to the old G.I. Joe catchphrase, knowing is half the battle. I have to say, is there anything more uplifting and cool than having a community that surrounds the show that goes, we support the caller. Maybe you did push a little hard. You didn't do anything particularly unusual, but let's all think about what happened here. Now, there's other people already saying, maybe I did, or maybe I didn't. But to see these people going, yeah, I can see that maybe there was some discomfort there that led to the caller wanting to get off the phone. Doesn't mean that you did anything wrong, but you as a host have some responsibility. It seems you're willing to consider that responsibility, and we are willing as a community to hash out exactly where the borders and the boundaries of that responsibility lies. Yeah, this is why I keep Facebook. Yeah, this gives me hope. Yeah, I have been involved in other aspects of the internet that are just people going, your hands look weird, or your forehead looks too big. I've seen that reaction to being out there in public with the work, in public with my work. And I've seen how heartbreaking that can be and how much it can put me in my head. So to know that we've built a community that is actually still willing to go, well, let's look at what happened. I think maybe the caller did just have poor time management. Also, maybe you're sensing that you pushed a little too hard. Maybe calling things out needs to be handled with more care. Maybe we can all come together and think about that. Man, how do you explain that to people? When you sit here, it makes it so easy to not go, why are the numbers down on Beautiful Anonymous? Why aren't the numbers what they were 6-7 years ago? I sit here, I go, who can care about numbers when you've got a fan base as smart and unique and emotionally intelligent as this? Thank you all for being a part of it. And last week's caller, thank you so much. And if my instinct that maybe I pushed too hard or stepped on some nerves is true, I just want you to know that obviously you can tell. I think hard about it. Try to be responsible. If I put you in a place where I made your heart race a bit more than you wanted to, it's not my intent. And I want to take care of the caller, and I want to take care of the conversation. And if I dropped the ball on that and you felt like that was part of why you had to go, my bad. And if it is truthful that you just went, oops, I scheduled this wrong, I don't have as much time as I thought I did when I talked to Andrea, I'll stop worrying about it. But I take pride in this community that surrounds this show for not letting me off the hook and also not beating up on me, and instead saying, let's think about what happened and let's think about where you're at and why you're at there. It's just awesome. It's just awesome, and I feel lucky to be a part of it. Okay. Since I am recording the intro, of course, every neighbor of mine has decided now is the best time to mow their lawn. So I will be quick and tell you that I think you're going to love this caller. I say at one point, and I think it might be true, that, oh my God, truly there is someone on my property with a leaf blower and I don't know who they are. The suburbs is wild, and working from home is wild and a joy and also a nightmare. I mean, this person is leaf blowing my neighbor's lawn by standing on my lawn and pointing their gas-powered leaf blower across the entire street. That's how you know you have a leaf blower that's unnecessarily strong. And my wife's an environmentalist, and she hates nothing more than a gas-powered leaf blower. So the fact that they're standing as far away that they're on my... Anyway, leave it all in, Andrea, leave this all in. Leave this all in. We got to stop with these gas-powered leaf blowers. Have to stop. There's better alternatives that are better for the earth and are also better for my goddamn recording schedule. This is nuts. Anyway, this week's caller, at one point in the call, I say is probably the nerdiest caller we've had in 8 years of the show. I think they're certainly up there, and maybe there will be some debate about whether or not that's true, and people start to throw out some past callers, but the levels of nerdiness on this one just double down, then triple, then quadruple, then quintuple down, and you'll hear all about it. You'll also hear, though, the first half of the call is about something that, yeah, is nerdy. The caller is in science, but also is so heartfelt. The caller does research into topics that are not easy, and that can be heartbreaking and harsh and brutal because it's real life. We talk about what it's like to research things that are life and death, literally. You're researching topics, and they relate to things that people die from. And you have to consider those human stories. Or you have to figure out how much of yourself to give away by disconnecting from those human stories. And sometimes the things that guide you in that pursuit happen to be super nerdy. And some of the things that allow you to protect your own emotional state are even nerdier than the super nerdy things that guide your pursuit. It's a lovely call. I feel really, really lucky that this caller's out there in the world working so hard for the rest of us. And I know I'm not the only one. Enjoy the call, everybody.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello?
Hi.
Chris, how are you?
I'm doing really well today, actually. Doing really well. Better than usual. Don't know why.
I'll take it.
Yeah, just feeling positive. How about you? How are you?
Same, very positive. It's been a good day so far, so you can't complain.
Good. Have you and I spoken before?
Twice, actually.
On the show? I recognize your voice.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. Counter-Strike?
Counter-Strike?
I met my spouse playing Counter-Strike.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, how are you?
Video game. He shot me in the head. Good. We also spoke another time.
When was that?
And I don't think you'll put it together. So, it was the very first caller on the Love Is Everywhere waffle brunch.
Oh, nice.
I work in clinical research.
That's incredible. Yeah, that one I would be that between that being live and emotional and part of a very long weekend. That one I'm not going to claim, but yes, I did recognize your voice right away. I'll pat myself on the back for that. How are you? Good? Feeling good? You said positive already, but now that we've reestablished our connection, I want to touch base again.
I'm good. Give you a platform on clinical research real quick, because I feel like a lot of people don't know much about it. I mean, it's a really interesting field to work in, and I have some fun anecdotes, including penis jokes related to clinical research.
Say penis jokes?
So, a patient who made penis jokes that resulted in a lot of extra documentation and work for people on the back end.
So someone making inappropriate penis jokes that then everyone has a headache to deal with.
So clinical research is actually a highly regulated field for different phases of trials. So I've mainly worked with phase 1 through 3. So phase 1 is usually dose finding. So the maximum tolerated dose we can give to patients without there being tremendous amounts of side effects. So it's really important that patients are documenting their side effects. Phase 2 looks more at efficacy. So, okay, we know the dose now. Let's look at making sure this actually does what it's supposed to, because what happens in the lab versus what happens in patients is very different. And then it also looks at a lot of different adverse events. And depending on the field you're in, since I work in oncology, we use what's called the CTCAE. Tons of acronyms in clinical research, too. So if I say anything that doesn't make sense, please stop me.
I'm already in way over my head.
That's okay. One looks at efficacy, so it works, and then side effects, so again, adverse events. We have a very specific grading system in there. It's a booklet. Anybody can go download it from the NCI website. If they Google it, they can find it. There are side effects that are listed in there, so it's like white counts, low hemoglobin, so people are having anemia, low platelets, side effects like a cough or a rash or whatever. They very rigorous guidelines on like how things are treated from grade 1 to grade 5, grade 1 being mild, grade 5 being death, and others in between, like grade 3 and 4, typically hospitalization or like major interventions needed for the patient. And then phase 3 takes that, if the phase 2 study is successful, that agent and usually randomizes and blinds the patient for it. They don't know exactly what they're getting. And other patients will get what's called a placebo. And everybody understands like the placebo effect part of it. Don't do as many of those in oncology because it wouldn't be right to withhold a drug from a patient. That's typically how they're done. And there's lots of regulating bodies oversee clinical trials, both on like the institutional level and on the sponsor side, as well as the government. Everybody thinks FDA. There's more than that, but it's been an interesting more than a decade that I've worked in the field. And one of my favorite anecdotes, obviously, like I said, was the penis joke. So patients are on an oral medication, they get pill diary. And so this one patient, to make sure we were paying attention, wrote down things like, you know, erection lasting longer than 4 hours. That's actually gradable in a CTCAE. So we looked at this and we're like, we had to query the site and we're like, hey, can you please explain why this was on the diary, but you didn't report this as an adverse event? Everything that's in the record has to match what's in the data. And the site has to go back to the patient and talk to them about it. And the patient's like, well, I was just joking about it. And it's like, that's not the appropriate place to put this. And there was up and back with the site about what to do. And we have to document, like, we had a discussion with the patient, way more work than it needed to be. But the patient found out people were looking at his diary. And it wasn't just something we were asking for fun.
So this was some patient's way to amuse themselves. And also similar, you hear these stories that like bands will have these ridiculous riders. I only want green M&Ms. And then you come to find out, well, a lot of times that's not about actually wanting green M&Ms. It's to find out if anyone's paying attention so that the things they do need are being attended to. So they tried to pull their own version of that and just created headaches for everybody.
Right. Exactly. And then it's like, well, if this gets inspected by like the FDA or like an institutional review board, they're going to come back. They'll want to see that documentation because they'll have the same question we did about like, why wasn't that reported as an adverse event?
What I love about this is knowing like, it sounds like you're doing heavy duty. You mentioned oncological. So this is heavy duty cancer research, which is important to everybody. This is stuff that has implications for society and you know, for all the many people doing it. They're all working towards these common goals. To know that one person just kind of screwing around doesn't realize they could accidentally write something down just to see if you're reading it or to joke around, and then there might be some treatment or medication that gets stalled because people go, we have to find out what's causing all these erections. And that's a thing that people need to take seriously and check into, only to find out these were phantom erections.
Right. You don't want to report something that's not true. If you look at some of the different oncology drugs that are on the market, have brochures with them that say, like, in these trials, these patients experienced like these adverse events, and they were like, this many percentage was like a grade 3 or this percentage was a grade 4, you know, and sort of looking at that, because the patients have to make sort of a risk-benefit decision for themselves, as do their physician.
Yeah.
To make sure it's accurate. Can't underreport, can't overreport.
And this is someone who, when they're making the jokes, they are clearly, like if they're a part of the study, this is someone who is suffering and maybe needs a moment of levity. So I'm not trying to come down on them too hard, but it's a pain in your butt when the dick jokes start flying.
Yes. And that's absolutely true. And, you know, saw subsequent diaries and there were better things in there about like when hiking on a vacation or what have you. And I'm like, that's what I want to see. I want to see that you're doing better and you're doing great.
Yeah. So let me, is it a fair question to ask? Just, you know, are they going to cure cancer someday? I feel like you probably know more about it than anybody else I'll talk to anytime soon. You think they're going to cure it?
When I started a long time ago, I started in pediatric oncology, and every cancer for kids was a death sentence, even 100 years ago. In the last 50 years worth of advancement, 4 out of 5 children will be cured of their cancer.
How many?
It's gone from 4 out of 5. So about 80% of children will be cured from their cancer.
Oh, wow. So it's gone a long way. Unfortunately, the government doesn't fund as much
pediatrics as they do for adults. The NCI, I think, only gives like 4 or 5% right now compared to the rest of that going to adult cancers. But pediatric oncology, pediatric cancers as a whole are much more rare than adult cancers. Also biologically very different. They're more aggressive. And they're still working to understand a lot of like the mechanisms behind how these happen and how they develop. That there are a lot of these cancers now that, think of like a lot of the low and intermediate risk leukemias and like germ cell tumors and kidney tumors that in pediatrics, as long as the markers are favorable, those patients have a great outlook on life.
It's one of those things where I sit there and I go, whoa, like to hear about that progress is a victory and beautiful and exciting. But I have to imagine you also work in a field where on some level to go, is it weird to say that you can celebrate the vast progress, but it also makes that 20% feel even more urgent and more grim? There's psychologically, it's not an easy thing to work in this field.
Absolutely. And, I worked in pediatrics for 7 years, and one of the most memorable things I remember having to do is get what's called a compassionate use request, which is much easier currently now than it was when I was doing this. A drug for a patient who couldn't swallow pills. So the company was going to make like a liquid formulation. The patient wasn't eligible for the trial, but we made a request to the FDA for the patient to get it outside of the trial. And I remember worked Christmas Eve to like make this happen. I remember speaking to people on the phone, and all of them were like, seemed sort of like heartwarming, like, Merry Christmas. We wish the best for this patient and their family, and we hope that this at least brings them some peace knowing that they tried everything. But I always think about that whenever I'm working on things and trying to, having one of those bad days where like, wake up, you spill coffee on yourself, nothing's going your way. Like, you see more paperwork than you sometimes know what to do with. And you have to really sort of play to those 80% that are still out there and kicking and, keep going for the other 20%.
It is strange to think about that someone who was alive 100 years ago studying this would look at what we have accomplished in this field and probably fall to their knees and cry tears of joy.
Absolutely.
I never thought of it that way.
Okay. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I'm going to tie that in here.
You're telling me someone who met their spouse playing video games and killing each other is also a fan of Star Trek?
I'm a bit of a nerd. It's okay. I tied Star Trek into some of my like clinical research talks and some of my master's degree talks. And I think like some of the doctors are like, oh yeah, you think about medicine in like this day and age and it's barbaric because, a lot of these patients are still getting basically like chemicals that are very toxic and like destroy cells that divide rapidly that they need, which is why people's like hair fall out and their white count goes down. Like, if we look at this now compared to like some of the more tailored, like the immunotherapies and the CAR T that are coming down the line and getting approvals, like so much better and they're so much more targeted to the cancer that they're not having sort of all this like all out, for lack of a better word, that the patients sort of have to suffer through the rest of these side effects. We'll look back in another 50 years and be like, wow, we've come even further.
Yeah. It must be, you said you've been doing this for 10 years?
More than 10 years.
More than 10 years.
Actually, more than 15.
More than 15. So then definitely, I have to imagine there's got to be a bit of like very frustrating but necessary, because you mentioned, right? There's times where you go, the trials are still happening, but this person really needs it, and we got to get them what they need. But that doesn't always happen. And you don't want to just rush treatments out to people willy-nilly, right? These safeguards and these methodologies exist for a reason, but there's also within your 15 years, there's got to there's got to be something very strange about how you view time, in the sense that there are absolutely people who missed a window of something that later proved effective, but due to all the FDA, all the safety checking, all the safeguards, which, yes, are very necessary, there must be people where you must have been doing this long enough where you go, every 6 months that we were pretty certain this worked, where it didn't get approval, was 6 months of people who missed a window that proved literally critical. It literally could have saved lives and didn't. How do you deal with that? And also, does your industry have counseling in place for those of you who are on that side of it? Is that part of the process?
Well, I have a really good therapist, so shout out to my therapist. A lot of places don't for counseling, but having been on the academic medical center side for so long, the benefits packages include those employee assistance programs where you can get like a specific number of sessions with a therapist to sort of talk about those things and get the tools you need to help compartmentalize and take that sort of thing home with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did do that when I started. I remember like my second week, I had to go over on the floor to see one of the physicians to get their signature on something. One of the parents was like screaming and crying in the hallway because their kid had just passed. Like that was a shock to the system because here I am just trying to do my job and as calm could be because they've been doing this for a really long time. And to see that happen the first time, I'm like, I need to make sure I get my head on straight because it could be a challenging job if I don't get that sorted.
And how human is your actual day-to-day? I imagine you're analyzing data a lot of times, and that's spreadsheets and numbers, but those numbers in the spreadsheets do represent humanity and human experience, right?
It sort of depends on what position you're in. So the doctors who run the trials at the sites are called investigators, PIs. They'll have sub-investigators, sub-Is, and then they delegate a lot of the tasks. So like the regulatory startup, so getting stuff through the institutional review board, making sure like there are proper consents for the patients to read, making sure like if we have to get a permission from the FDA for like an in-house or investigator-initiated trial, that we have all the paperwork with the FDA. So there are people who literally just do regulatory work 40 plus hours a week, these studies. Are people who literally just go through the medical records and abstract the data and put it into the case report forms. Like that's an art in its own. I've seen some really, really amazing data managers who understand like it's 100 shades of gray trying to get that into a black and white case report form without getting questions from like the sponsor or your monitor. It's incredibly difficult. Then there are the coordinators who are usually patient facing, not depending on the field and sort of like the level of training that the coordinators have, they're not always permitted to do everything. Like, when I coordinated, I was not qualified to present a consent to the family because I don't have the medical background to sort of like answer those questions. And then there's like the in-house like monitors and auditors who sort of like look at the data, and those either come from the pharma company or the academic site because they've monitored for multiple years. And then if you monitor, you're like, do everything because like you have to understand how the data works. You have to understand what required elements are in the consent. Make sure that matches the protocol. Like have your hand in everything with those. So depending on your strengths or what you have, sort of depends on like how patient facing or how people facing you are. Because there are data managers that like are faced with the physicians long enough to review the logs. There are questions where they're like, there's some nuance in how this was reported. I can give you an example of if you want to understand sort of the objectivity of like getting an adverse event, like physicians and myself couldn't agree on a grade on a specific event.
Sure.
So getting that documentation done and then getting things in. So, long answer to your question, but
it's really because it's right there in the name, right? Clinical research. And clinical is often used as a as an adjective to mean separated from humanity, right? Don't be so clinical about everything. That's the thing people put out there as a way to say, tap into some compassion, some empathy, some humanity. But in reality, the clinical research that you are doing in particular is a great gift to humanity and tied into people and families having intensely emotional experiences. And it couldn't be less clinical in that negative label way, in that sense. Although it's the idea of both keeping touch with that and not being emotionally crushed by it while keeping in touch with it has got to be such a weird tightrope to walk. I also have to imagine there might be people in your field who start to speak about things like cancer and its effects in a way that, yes, you go, oh, we might need to remember that these are lives and families and kids and parents and loved ones, and maybe it is worth touching base with that. I've never really considered it from the human perspective on your side of that line before. Let's pause there. I bet I'm not the only one thinking, oh, researchers, these people tend to be a little bit nameless, a little bit faceless, but they're humans too, helping us navigate the human experience. Who knew? Beautiful Anonymous. This is why I still love doing this show. It gets me to consider everybody from different angles. Hey, we'll be right back. Hi, everybody. As you know, I am a dad. My kid is 5, and I love him more than words can say. And I'm so happy that I'm also a husband and that my wife is so on top of making sure this kid is healthy. I grew up in an era of human history when we never drank water and we ate whatever we wanted. And now we actually give kids vitamins, everybody. But you got to be careful because not all vitamins are equal. A lot of them are just candy in disguise. You start to look at the ingredients list of some of these kids' vitamins, and I mean, some of them will have 2 teaspoons of sugar in there and then a whole bunch of weird chemicals that you're not sure even what those words mean, but you're pretty sure they're not healthy. And then a whole, just they're basically just gummy candies, things that are not ultimately healthy for kids to eat, right? That's why Haya was created. The pediatrician-approved superpowered chewable vitamin. While most children's vitamins have 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Haya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk, yet it tastes great and it's perfect for picky eaters. I will tell you, we have Haya vitamins in our house. Cal likes them as much, if not more so, than those gummy vitamins, and knowing that they have stripped away so much of the unhealthy aspects of them, just as a parent, this is a no-brainer. Haya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full-body nourishment our kids need with a yummy taste they love. And guess what? You're not going to be shocked to hear there's experts that go into formulating the nutrition behind these. There's 12 organic fruits and veggies. They are supercharged with 15 essential vitamins, minerals, vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, all sorts of things that help immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, all the stuff you want to make sure your little one is setting a foundation of health. It's non-GMO. They are vegan. They are dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free. Everything you're going to need, you can have them and feel safe with them around your house. And that nut-free thing too. Remember that, everybody. So when your kid's friend comes over and they start going through the cabinets and they open these things up, nut-free, safe for everybody, not just your kid, but all the kids that come around and start rummaging, right? Haya is designed for kids 2 and up. They're sent straight to your door, so parents have one less thing to worry about. And I love that. I love that you can sign up and set it so that you don't ever, right? Vitamins are not the type of thing that you go, oh man, we haven't had a chance to run down to the store for a while. Vitamins are not a thing you want to fall behind on. So you get a cool bottle with your first order, and then you can just have eco-friendly refills show up every month, throw them in that cool bottle. You know exactly where you are. You're in your rhythm. Don't also forget there's new kids probiotics. There's nighttime essentials. And my kid loves them. And my kid's one of the pickiest eaters I've ever been around. Haya is doing great stuff. We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. That's half. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/beautiful stories. This deal is not available on the regular website. Go to hiyahealth.com, hiyahealth.com/beautiful stories, and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. I have to tell you straight up that I wear a gray sweater, and every time I wear it, I get compliments on it. People tell me it fits nice and that it looks nice on me, and it's from Quince. How's that for a personal endorsement? That I have personally shopped at this place that I'm encouraging you to shop, and that I personally get more compliments on the things I've bought from there than other things. And we need to be thinking about this. I know a lot of people right now are sitting here going, man, the weather's getting warmer. You got to put the jackets away. The sweater, I got my gray sweater, that's going away for the summer, right? You got to start thinking about shorts, t-shirts. People get out here, and I know I'm not the only one who knows the feeling of wasting money on clothes that you don't totally like, and you only wear them a couple times, and then they sit on the shelves for too long. No, Quince is out here. You get high-quality pieces. They never go out of style. You're going to wear them year after year. Quince has all the seasonal must-haves like 100% European linen shirts from $30, performance polos, versatile flow-knit activewear, and the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman. The savings get passed on to you and me because I actively shop at Quince, so I'm a part of this as well. And like I said, this sweater, every time I wear it, people are like, yo, you're looking good, dude. Every time. Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes. And I have to tell you, one of the simplest forms of activism is spend your money at places like this, places that do the research on the factories, make sure that things are safe, ethical, that everything in those manufacturing practices is being handled with care and responsibility. It's one of the simplest things you can do. And I'm telling you, I did not break the bank on this sweater, but I broke people's minds, and I've probably broken a few hearts because people compliment me all the time. How was that? Turned into a weird wrestling promo at the end, but it was all heartfelt. Upgrade your wardrobe. Go to quince.com/beautiful for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/beautiful. Get free shipping and a 365-day return. Quince.com/beautiful. Thanks to all of our advertisers who help support the show. Now let's get back to the phone call. I've never really considered it from the human perspective on your side of that line before.
One of the doctors and one of the nurses I worked with when I originally started forever ago, they very much had this tough love approach to it. And, it took me a little bit to sort of understand why they did that. Because, there's some places where it's like, okay, you have a 95% cure rate. You give this drug, but there's a chance your child might lose their hearing. Do you want your child to live, or do you want your child deaf? It's hard. And I think people who know me know that I blend two different things together. One obviously pulls from Star Trek. So analytical side, very important.
You said Spock's
and anybody
political
who knows
side?
me would describe me as analytical. Analytical side.
Oh, got it.
Just being logical.
Yeah.
And then laugh, but product of the 80s, Grumpy Bear is my bear. So, pulling from the Care Bears for compassion.
So you're a combination.
You can't have just one, and you can't have.
So it is fair to say that you approach your clinical research in the very intense world of cancer research specifically, where you try to go, I'm going to be half Spock, half Care Bears.
Sometimes it's more Spock, and sometimes it's more Care Bears. Dealing with direct reports, try to put empathy first because they're human, and I need them to show up in a way that's best to do their job. They're if I was just logical and like, it sucks that you relate, like, here's the consequences of that, like, doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
It's a really fine line to walk.
Yeah. Have you ever, in 15 years, I'm sure you've worked with people who are badasses who have retired, right?
Yes.
Have you ever watched someone retire and looked at them and gone, I know how long they did this. I know what developments in this field happened during their career. And no one is ever going to know that they are probably, you don't want to say any individual is directly responsible for things in medicine. It's a collective effort. It's humanity coming together. But where you look at someone and go, oh, this is a person who's just retiring, and no one out there is ever going to know that they are at least partially responsible for advances that have saved thousands of lives. Do you see people move on where you go, oh, you get to go just like travel, take cruises like retired people do. And the world doesn't know that the work you did helped keep everyone else healthy for that long. Like, there's a lot of heroes whose names don't get written down in the world of clinical research, is what I'm saying ultimately, right?
I mean, but that all shows up on their academic CVs. Like, some of them, with managing regulatory documents, they're like 30 plus pages long with all their publications and their contribution. Pediatrics, where I did see that happen, it's a really small community, and we're celebrated, acknowledged. Adult world is completely different because there's just thousands of physicians.
What you do is really specific and important. And I have to say, I probably haven't thought about it too much. And part of that is because it's scary to think about. It's a scary world to think about. And to know that there's people who dive in and make it their mission in life. I know that we're lucky to have them. But thinking about childhood cancers, thinking about the 20% of cancers that have proven, you don't want to say unbeatable, but unbeatable compared to the 80% that people have found effective uses for. Do you ever find, like, when you're out socializing and people ask you what you do you ever find that people don't know how to talk to you once you tell them?
Oh, because I have a pretty practiced spiel, and a lot of people find it very interesting. I think it's probably because I do keep really fabulous company. I hang out with people who like Star Trek, who, are open-minded and supportive. Like, I'm not going to find myself knee deep in a certain political faction. They're just going to start screaming like anti-vax, what have you. And, the ones who are going to be like, oh, you're just pushing Big Pharma's agenda.
I bet that while, there are people out there who are anti-vax, I'm not looking to get into fights with any of them. I have to imagine that someone in your field has a very short level of patience for the anti-vax community. Not assuming that's true for everyone, but I bet in general that when you bring that up, I sit there and go, yeah, if there's anybody who's just going to turn around mid-sentence and walk away from that, it's people who work in your field have earned that right.
Yes. There's also the I guess we can say unicorn if you want, who probably grumbled and took it because they had to, but there are nurses that I'm aware of that are anti-vax. Mm-hmm. Physicians, but I don't understand that, and not here to harp on them. So
no, you also said that part of how you stay connected to people is you hang out with cool people effectively. And you specifically said, I'm hanging out with other Star Trek people. Are you like a Trekker? Are you that level? Are you like going to conventions, cosplay level?
So I will tell you a fun story. I met one of my best friends, who I now call my space brother from another mother, at a Star Trek convention.
Your space brother from another mother?
people see the two of us together and assume we're brother sister. We get along so very well.
What happens at a Star Trek convention where you walk away with someone who is sibling level found family? What do you connect on?
We connected a lot on different ideals that Star Trek tries to uphold. Obviously, Gene Roddenberry, for anybody who isn't a Trek fan, Gene Roddenberry, had a really good hope for the future where like money isn't an issue. Everybody, regardless of like, race, ethnicity, disability, whatever is on that list, gender identity, like everybody just gets along, and we're advancing not only the human race, but also scientific understanding and meeting new people, new species, new, perspectives in the world. Vulcan's concept of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, IDIC, is something I always try to live by. I like seeing that, and that's part of what my appeal is to your show, because I get to hear a slice of other people's lives and perspectives that I don't only have experience with, but I get to hear that and sort of understand it, and then I can delve in further if I want to.
At what stage of life did you become a Star Trek obsessive?
I would say obsessive probably in the 2000s. I grew up in a very science-forward, science fiction family, and my dad took me to conventions when I was little.
So would you say that choosing your field of clinical research, specifically focusing on cancer, is, as you lay this all out, it does strike me that the ideals, especially of the original Roddenberry Star Trek, which my father is a fellow obsessive, not to a convention level, but I mean, you give my dad a Star Trek trivia book about the original series, he's going to ace it. It's wild. But I'm a Star Wars guy. I mean, he's always made fun of me for that. He loved DC Comics and Star Trek. I love Marvel Comics and Star Wars. That's how close we came to having that much to talk about. But no, we don't talk about these things. Would you say that choosing your field, though it is tough, it does strike me that it's one of the things that you can do that is as close to the set of ideals that is Roddenberry Star Trek values in action here on Earth, not in science fiction, as far as helping humanity, as far as sacrificing for others. Is that part of why you chose what you do?
I like many people who, started in this field prior to COVID, found it accidentally. The connection is not lost on me. And like I said, I'd Star Trek into many different talks and papers and stuff that I've done. Worked on a master's degree in law. I have one. And one of the things I did was use the Star Trek aliens as a perfect example for the expert problem in that communication talk that I did.
Wild. I will ask about your thoughts on the following, and this will walk away a little bit from your job. And I will also say, hearing you lay out all the values of the original Star Trek, which I think have followed it from series to series and movie franchise, some of them are more action movies, some of them are a little bit more here's life on a ship, but all of them on some levels still are turning the dial on those original values Gene Roddenberry put out there. For anybody who's wondering what we're talking about, I know this from my dad. You can go look at the original series where people like to make fun of William Shatner now. People like to make fun of the acting style. People laugh at the perceived cheesiness compared to modern sci-fi. But you also are looking at a world where, in the 1960s, I believe is when the first series came out. And this show was using the idea of being in the future as real commentary on people needing to come together in the present during one of the most divisive times, certainly in American history. Famously, the actress who played Lieutenant Uhura, I believe, wanted to leave the show because she felt like she wasn't getting enough lines and received a call, I believe you'll know more about this than I, from none other than Martin Luther King Jr., who basically said, you have become the most prominent Black woman in many white American families because of the love of this show, just consider that before you leave. I think that's, I might have butchered the story to some degree, but it's pretty close. Star Trek has always been, for all the people who like to laugh at it as sort of like a cheesy, stiff acting style, Shatner doing karate chops on guys in rubber suits, it's always been ultra progressive in its values, and that's always been at the core of the mission statement of the franchise, right?
Absolutely. And we talked to Nichelle Nichols about that at a convention. And,
you did?
She was surprised. Yes, she was surprised that he was trying to encourage her to stay on, because she also, if I'm remembering my conversation correctly, she felt like she wasn't doing enough in the show to sort of like help push the boundaries. And, conversation with her really helped her, like, okay, I am making progress. It might be hard for me to see, but, believe that it's out there.
I think I'm correct. The first interracial kiss on television was an episode of Star Trek.
Her and Shatner.
1968. I just looked it up. It took till 1968 to have an interracial kiss on television. And then, you think, and people might sit there and go, oh, wow, that's interesting. TV's not the most progressive. Like, think about when Ellen came out on TV. Think about Modern Family having a depiction of a gay couple raising kids. And you sit here and you go, how many years ago was that? 1968 is way ahead of the curve for people to be taking swings about issues that were deemed divisive in a social sense. Star Trek, I might need to agree with my dad on this. I may have missed the boat, because Star Trek has a really huge heart that I probably underestimated when I was like, that's just my dad's thing. Shatner's weird.
I also think some of the older Star Trek hasn't aged well, because there was still a lot of candy for the male viewers and, some questionable situations.
Yeah.
I think if you want to give it a go, try Star Trek Discovery, one of the newer shows, incredibly progressive, have amazing LGBTQ presentation in the show, and I'm totally there, which I told Wilson Cruz this as well. I am totally there for all of that. He plays Dr. Culber. He and Anthony Rapp are a couple. And there's a scene in the first season where the two of them are just in their quarters brushing their teeth, having a normal couple thing, where I had to pause it because I was crying so much, just so happy that a lot of my friends were finally getting to see the representation of themselves on screen.
I think perhaps
literally the textbook definition of love.
I will say something that the nerds will cheer about. I think perhaps the two franchises that have been the most socially progressive sci-fi nerdy franchises are probably Star Trek and the X-Men, my beloved X-Men. I will tell you, I once, over 20 years ago, went to a convention out in Anaheim, California. This would have been 2003 or 2004. This was before conventions had become, had figured out how to make people feel like rock stars. And I do remember entering a room where the guy who played the Gorn was signing photos and meeting fans. But the Gorn, do you know the Gorn? When I say the Gorn, do you familiar?
Very familiar.
You're familiar. The Gorn is a big lizard creature. And it's like a pretty stereotypical Star Trek guy in a rubber suit situation here. So it was just this older actor at a table, like a wooden folding table, but he's not signing pictures that show his face in any way. Like he's signing pictures of a rubber lizard walking on two legs. And I was like, man, I think it was like $10 or $20 or something. And it's like, everybody's got to hustle. Everybody find a way to pay your rent. And the fan love is there. By all means, get in on the fan love. But I remember my heart breaking a little bit of like, man, the Gorn is here all these years. It's the 2003 and the Gorn is signing pictures of the rubber suit. And then cut to 2023. And I am at an Office fan convention signing pictures of the character Trevor holding a pipe. And I said, I should not have felt bad for the Gorn. I would someday be where the Gorn has been. Who was I to judge the Gorn? For aren't we all the Gorn? Put that on my tombstone. Anyway, everybody, we'll be right back. We've got commercials. So happy to tell you about Green Chef. Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for clean eating, ranked the #1 meal kit overall by U.S. News and World Report, and having used it for a while now, I am not shocked by that. I tell you, I've used a number of the meal services. Green Chef makes it so simple, so easy. I have crushed a couple meals recently with no help. I just put the dinner down in front of my wife and my son, and everybody is happy, and I cooked the whole thing because Green Chef makes it so simple to build healthy habits. They've got nutritious recipes, and they are #1, the #1 meal kit for clean eating. Green Chef delivers quality whole foods with limited processed ingredients. We're talking about low added sugar and sodium, smart options so you can eat with a clean conscience. Nourish your body with chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes packed with clean ingredients. Green Chef sends organic, fresh produce in every box, along with responsibly sourced proteins, including 100% sustainably sourced seafood, 100% antibiotic, and hormone-free chicken. So for all my meat eaters, my fish eaters out there, they're doing things in an ethical way. All right? And I'm telling you, take it from me. I am not a good cook. I am not somebody who can stay organized in the kitchen. I am not somebody who finds the cooking process easy. Not only do I find it easy with Green Chef, I find it legitimately fun. I have found it fun. And it's so gratifying to make a meal where I feel like I'm punching above my weight, and I put it down in front of my wife and kid, and they're happy. I cooked a meal where one of the side dishes the other day was ciabatta bread with an artichoke cream cheese spread, and I felt like a culinary genius. And it took less than half an hour. You can take back time in the kitchen. Dinner in 30 minutes, lunch in 10. Green Chef delivers everything you need to make convenient, wholesome, delicious meals, and they drop it right at your doorstep. Also, whatever your diet is, I'm using the veggie one out there, but I mean, they've got plant-based, Mediterranean, gut and brain health, calorie smart, quick and easy, protein-backed, gluten-free. You can see what I'm saying here. There's so many different recipes, all of them Green Chef's seasonally inspired recipes. Celebrate the peak ingredients, flavors, and freshness of every season. Go to greenchef.com/stories50 and use code STORIES50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's it. An amazing offer. 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months at greenchef.com/stories50. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. We're coming up on Father's Day, and I'm so happy to work with not just a long-term advertiser on our show, but if you've ever heard me read one of these ads, you know, a long-term game changer for me, specifically in the Father's Day sense, Storyworth. Storyworth is absolutely incredible. I've noticed over the years that probably more than any other advertiser on the show, every once in a while, I will get messages through DMs or I'll see it posted on the social channels. People going, what's the thing where you make a book of a loved one's stories? It's this right here, right now. This is the ad where you're going to want to stick around till the end and get that promo code because all of you ask me about Storyworth because you've heard me talk about it. Now, Father's Day coming up, I will tell you, I have a whole book of my father's stories that he wrote. Some of them that I had heard before, some of them that I never knew, some of them that were shockingly open, some of them that were funny, and I love that I have it. And what a great gift for Father's Day, Storyworth. Here's how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question. You can help pick the questions. Sometimes you go and you help trigger the questions knowing that it's a story that you really want included in your book, or maybe it's a question that you go, I don't really know this much stuff about my dad in this realm. And you get to kind of pick and dictate the tone of the book. And then Storyworth makes that writing process a breeze. Your loved one gets that question, and all they have to do is respond to that email with a story. It can be long, it can be short, it doesn't matter. Storyworth chronicles it, and then they build all of those stories into a keepsake book for you. It's awesome. You'll get emailed a copy of that response. I loved that aspect of it. I would get the emails, and I don't know that my dad even knew I was reading them as he submitted them, and it was warming my heart every time that I got those emails with his stories, and I knew this book was for us, because after a year of that process, Storyworth takes your loved one's stories. They can take photos too. They put together a hardcover book. You can share that book with loved ones. You can revisit that book. I have 3 copies on the shelf right next to me, one for my son, one for me, one for my nephew, and my dad's stories are going to live on. And man, do I wish I had these from my grandparents, especially my 2 wackadoo grandfathers whose stories I used to love, and now they are gone and they're not written down. And it's a bummer, and I'm so glad we did it with my dad, and I really think you will enjoy it out there. Families love Storyworth. Has more than 25,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago. Give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift that you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, save $10 on your first purchase. Go to storyworth.com/beautiful. That's STORYWORTH.com/beautiful. Save $10 on your first purchase. Hello, everybody. It's me again, the Gorn. We are all the Gorn. Thanks to our advertisers who support the show. Now we're going to finish the phone call. And I said I should not have felt bad for the Gorn. I would someday be where the Gorn has been. Who was I to judge the Gorn? For aren't we all the Gorn?
And a lot of the actors actually, like, in the Star Trek franchise, especially like the Deep Space Nine cast, you know, they're like, oh, a portion of my autographs are like, you know, Neil Bourgeois, when he was still alive, would draw these like little Odo buckets. And that money all went to Doctors Without Borders. So, like, he was always fundraising. Like, a bunch of different actors and actresses, like, they use it to get out there, but then they're also doing good with it, which just, again, shows the values of them being in part of the collective Star Trek family.
I will not lie. My money from the office convention went towards my mortgage, but I was having a very scary year with contracts surrounding this show. So in the future, yes, maybe I will be able to allocate a little bit more to that. But just before I try to have any stolen valor about donations, although there were a bunch of actors there teaming up and autographing things to auction them off for charity, I think that world does ultimately have a good, nerdy heart. Now, we have 20 minutes left. I would be remiss, because I think if I remember right, the call where you laid out the Counter-Strike thing might have been part of our Valentine's Day episode that we did from the Sirius XM studios back when we were under their umbrella. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, how does someone go from getting killed in Counter-Strike, a pretty violent video game, to the person who killed you in that virtual world? Normally, those interactions, you all just move on from each other, right? What's done is done. How does this end in marriage?
Okay, so the short version of this story, I absolutely suck at video games. And I was playing this on an old school gaming PC. I had my own account. Was in there trying to figure out like how to pick up a gun. I kept like chucking it down because I was hitting the wrong key on the keyboard. And this guy on the other team shot me in the head. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing wrong? I can't understand. So I'm fumbling around trying to figure this out. Two hands, like the mouse and the keyboard, whatever, just like lost on me. I'm going through all this and I'm like, okay, this is absurd. Happens again. I respawn. I'm over there trying to pick up a gun thing. And I'm like, okay, this guy is really good. So I hop in chat and I'm like, can you please give me some pointers? I knew. He did. So like, then he was sort of like, okay, here's how you change weapons. Here's how you do that. Don't hit that key. Like do this, do that. Like coaching me through all of it. So this was back in the day of like those internet forums. So I was like, well, bookmark this server because I'm on this server quite often. I'm still trying to figure this out. This is a link to the forums. Come join in. Hang out. We're a fun, nerdy bunch. Everybody on that forum decided to actually meet up in real life. So we met up at an anime convention. That's where I met him for the first time.
You truly are a nerd to a high degree. Like, you met your husband virtually on Counter-Strike, but then in person, it was at an anime convention?
Oh.
You're making me look like the fucking Fonz over here. You're making me feel cool.
Sorry.
Nothing to apologize
Nerds
for.
are cool.
Nerds are. Look who you're talking to. I have
Nerds are
10,000 comic books in my attic. Like, I'm not somebody to nerd shame at all. But the virtual meeting in Counter-Strike and then the in-person meeting, arguably nerdier than the virtual one? That's wild. And what is it?
And we go to Star Trek conventions together because
I love it. What is it that blows you away when you meet him in person, though? Is it pretty quick that you're like, uh-oh? And I need to know what those specifics are in your world and in your brain and your heart.
So I was actually, the thing we have in common, I was working for a public access show at the time. So I was covering part of the convention, and then I was also doing video back to the convention for their archive. And so I was lugging around all this camera gear, and I had some time. So the two of us just sat down, and I'm like, hey, I want to thank you again for your help. I still suck at this, but at least I'm not like throwing my gun instead of trying to shoot it. We just started talking, and we realized like we have the same sort of values and perspectives. We have a lot of the same attitudes. And we probably spent like, I think 6 hours like talking that day. And at the end of the day, like I went home and I told my sister, I'm like, I'm going to marry this guy. I have this feeling I'm going to marry this guy.
That quick.
Not that quick, you know.
What would you say is the nerdiest thing about your husband?
Sorry, the nerdiest thing?
About your husband.
He's amazing at video games and definitely throw nerdy jokes at each other all the time.
What kind of jokes are we talking here?
Some of them are not very appropriate, but it's a lot of like different nerdy jokes, like, you know, referencing like Star Trek or different characters in there. I'm always like, oh, how Vulcan of me or how not Vulcan of me, you know. Gets me. He gets me in a way a lot of people don't.
And do you guys still into, like, is your whole friend group still uber nerds?
I mean, I brought his friend home for him because he moved to where I live and he didn't have any friends. So take the commuter train, and I saw this guy with all these nerdy like math shirts and D&D shirts, and I kept saying hi to him and like making different nerd jokes. And finally, the one day he sat down and talked to me. So I texted him, was like, "Hey, make sure you're wearing pants. I'm bringing a friend home for you." So he has like his nerdy group. They play Pathfinder together, and then I have like my nerdy group, and then my friends from running club because physical exercise is important to me.
Wait,
and I blame two of the doctors I used to work with for getting into running. So
listen, it's very healthy. I need to be clear though. I need to be clear that I just heard correctly. You would go out in the wild, find random nerdy men and harvest them and bring them home as friends for your husband? Like strangers?
One person.
Okay,
and then
that just
his
happened
whole
one time.
friends group decided they really liked him. And so like that was the running joke. Like, you know, I'm an introvert because I need to recharge my batteries, but I can be very extroverted, more introverted than me. So he was going to find friends. It was going to be, you know, me helping him do this.
So you just went and found some random guy who was rocking D&D t-shirts and said, "I need you to be friends with my husband." And then that guy said, "Your husband should just be friends with all my friends because all my friends sit around and play Magic the Gathering and all these other nerd things."
30-minute train ride for me to assess, like, hey, yes, this would be a good friend for my spouse. I don't need long to read people.
Wow. Well done. I would love it if Hallie came home and was like, "I met this person. They're going to be your friend now." I'd be like, "Oh, great. I need that." I have many days where I don't have any friend interaction. Let's do it. Hallie was like, I just met this person. Now, I will say, has anyone joked with you about this? That like, hey, put pants on. I'm bringing somebody home that I just met on the train. Does sound like the setup of like a bad pornographic movie. But in your case, no. It's like you guys might go play Warhammer together. How's that feel? You guys want to go paint some figurines together and then play some Warhammer?
Totally innocent. Yeah, like this is not the start of a bad porno. I promise. This is more of a, hey, hon, I brought a friend home. Oh, you took your pants off already. Can you please put them on and come out here? You know,
That's amazing.
The type of people, you know, in their underwear playing video games holds true.
That's an amazing move. I can't believe you pulled it off. Well done. Well done.
Yep.
And now you're also out here. You said you're in a running group too.
I'm a pace group leader for one of the local running clubs. Be the run walk, back of the Packers unite.
Back of the Packers. I love that. Do you, to loop it back to the beginning, I have to imagine that your perspective on your health is a little different than people who don't spend their professional lives studying situations where people are fighting life-threatening conditions.
Well, I won't get into my own personal situation, but I have a couple chronic issues and things that have altered my perspective on that, and just saying like, here now is absurd. I got a wake-up call in my early 30s, just looking at what my family was going through, being like, I really need to take care of myself. Like, I got to put myself first, and that's going to be important if I don't want to go on the same route that some of my family members are going down.
Yeah.
One of the doctors I worked with was training for the Boston Marathon. Trying to qualify, it took her multiple tries, but she did it. And looked at me one day and was like, you should try running a 5K. And the other physician's a total, I say this lovingly in case they ever hear it, is a total gym rat and, all about strength. And I realized I need that too, because I'm sitting in a desk so long, like, you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So it's very inspiring to me. And they know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That one just gave me pause because I got to say, and maybe saying this on Beautiful Anonymous will actually help me. But hearing you say that you've taken those actions, I'm like, I have to do it. My health is not good. And I'm aware of it. And I'm not doing anything about it. So I'm very inspired to hear that you've done stuff about it. And I'm saying that out loud in the hopes that, not that I will have the entirety of our fan base start leaving comments like, Chris, what are you doing for your health lately? But for me to start recognizing that publicly, I think will be a good thing, good, healthy thing.
I mean, it's important. And your podcast, I found your podcast because I was training for my first half marathon. And that got me through the 175 miles worth of training for my first half. So it's always a treat when I get to put it on, and I'll put some miles in when I'm by myself and just listen to other people.
I love that.
Anybody who says running isn't for them, two things. One, slow the fuck down. You're going too fast. If you can't get to the end of the block, slow down. Two, a mile's a mile no matter your speed. I don't care if you're the last person to cross that finish line. You're laughing at people who are sitting on the couch.
Damn, you just went into coach mode. You just went into coach mode.
I encourage a lot of people to get through their training. Wow. A little bit of a cheerleader.
Wow. I can tell. There was a tone of voice where I'm like, oh, that's what you say to people who are trying not to show up for the running club. And you seem like someone who might just go knock on their door and go, hey, I haven't seen you in a few days. Where you at? And have that heart to heart. In the same way that you'll just bring a nerd from the train home.
Yep. Much.
Well, we're lucky to have you. We have 8 minutes left. What should we talk about?
Okay, let's talk about a completely random topic. Talk about birds.
Birds.
I've pet birds for the longest time. Bird people, some of the bird obsessive owners can be a little different.
And this is coming from someone who met her spouse on Counter-Strike. You're judging the bird people.
I worked with a nonprofit rescue for several years until we parted ways, but I helped put together one of the national cage bird shows, and it was a opening experience because the amount of logistics that goes behind getting 5,000 to 7,000 different pet birds, show birds, into the same room from across the country, then getting judges qualified to judge them either on look, or there's a special division of, you want to go down the internet rabbit hole, go look at singer canary competitions. Like, just look at some videos on YouTube. It will kind of blow your mind to see like how these work.
Canary competitions?
But to get those judges in singing canary competitions, it's a subsection of the bird show. Literally bring the birds in, turn the lights on, they get a set amount of time sing, and then they get judged on their songs. Not judged on looks, they're judged on songs. So the birds are judged on looks.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was like a Westminster dog side. I mean, I guess there's probably competitive everything, but competitive canary singing competitions. Just people who train their canaries to sing specific songs?
They don't have to train them. They're just bred to know the songs. That's one of those, the things they're born with.
Wow.
Patched. I worked more on the like pet bird, like cockatiel, cockatoo, that sort, like that class of birds. That's where I showed and where I had some success.
I just need to, let me tell you this. My next door neighbor growing up bought a cockatoo at one point. I forget what they named it. Oh, I'm blanking on the name of it. But it was terrifying because every day at sunrise, we would hear what sounded like the screams of a dying woman. But it was just the cockatoo saying hello to the sun. It was intense. Went on for years.
Yeah, that checks out. The parrots who can talk and imitate are very accurate. Because I had an African gray until he passed from a genetic condition. His cage was close to the front door, and so like people would come knocking on the door and try to sell us like the magazine or whatever, and he would just like hello, hello, and laugh at them. He thought it was funny, so he trolled everybody who came to our door.
Wow. So you like a good tropical bird. In Jersey, one of my favorite places in New Jersey, we've brought Cal there a few times. There's this place called the Raptor Trust. It's real small. I think they survive on donations if anybody wants to look it up, if anybody's looking to donate to a bird-driven cause. But basically, if a bird gets injured while migrating through New Jersey, you bring it to the Raptor Trust, and they help the birds heal, and they keep them safe until they're ready to go back out in the wild. But I'm talking like, I can bring my son there, and they have like bald eagles. They have giant owls. They have all sorts of hawks and stuff. You can see them so close up. It's really amazing.
Birds are spectacular creatures.
What's your favorite kind of bird?
A lot of research. Bird, probably an African gray, but there's a lot of research into their intelligence and their cognition. We're only beginning to like scratch the surface to understand like how truly intelligent they are.
It's pretty cool. I was walking home. This must have been a year or two ago. I was out on a walk by myself. I saw some vultures eating something at the edge of somebody's yard. I said, oh, I wonder what they got. And, Jersey, a lot of deer get hit. There's squirrels, there's whatnot. And they all took off as I walked by. And then I saw this other bird that was nearby start flying, and it unfolded its wings, and they just kept going and going. And I realized it was a golden eagle, and it was like 2 blocks from my house. And I couldn't believe that I saw an eagle take off from the ground from like 15 feet away right there.
That's some luck right there. How exciting.
It's pretty badass. It's pretty all right. I mean, you are like a bird person, anime person, Star Trek person, bad at video games, but enough of a video game person to attend an in-person meetup group from video game players and marry someone from said group person. And on top of that, a scientist. I'm going to go ahead and say, and I say this with love and respect, 8 years of doing this show, and I think you might be the nerdiest caller we've ever had. And that is a competition. And if other people want to comment or call in to try to take the crown, I can't remember anybody bringing the nerd heat more than you right now.
Thank you. I wear that as a compliment.
Oh, it is meant as one. It is meant as one. Are you a comic book person at all or no?
I got into comic books a little bit, but not very much.
That's the only area in which I would be able to best you then when it comes to nerdiness.
Very well read across science fiction and fantasy, though. So,
which fantasy franchises for the people who got into fantasy, and you'll know the exact type, the people who got into it because of Game of Thrones, who are now coming to the sad realization that George R.R. Martin may or may not ever release another book, and that they now know at least the rough outline of the ending, even if he does. What are the other fantasy franchises that you go, oh, if you liked that and you want something that was, brought to completion or is still active, what are the franchises you recommend fantasy-wise?
My first fantasy franchise was actually one of my school librarians, the Redwall series by Brian Jacques. All the forest creatures going out, having their adventures, having delicious meals. Like they literally just came out with a cookbook that's from like a lot of the recipes and the foods in the series. My friend got me for my birthday, and I'm like, I'm making stuff out of here.
Why is fantasy so hung up on food? I mean, Tolkien, George R.R. Martin, a lot of fantasy writing is like, and here's a specific broth that this type of creature makes. There's a lot of food writing that couples up with fantasy writing.
I think it helps set the world because that's one of the most important things everybody has in common. We all got to eat.
Yeah, I guess that's true, isn't it? I guess that's true. That was a much more simple answer that I probably could have figured out on my own before even asking it.
Okay. Let my analytical side answer for you.
It's totally fair. I like that we've gone down some tangents. Birds, Star Trek, running, a few other things. But I do want to just say in our last 30 seconds that I find myself thinking about the first half of the call in particular. Diving into the type of research you do, it's not easy. It's heartbreaking. These are human stories, actual human lives on the line. And I just want to say a big, huge thank you for being somebody who dedicated so much of your life to putting yourself in that headspace for the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Do this to make the world a better place.
What a beautiful note to end on for everybody listening on the free feed. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions from our listener-generated list as we go behind the paywall for anybody who wants to hear it. I think we'd all agree you seem like a caller that I can't imagine too many random questions that you're not going to have some angle on. For everybody who's been listening for free, goodbye. Thank you for supporting the show. It is much appreciated. And for everybody who has already signed up at beautifulanonymous.com, we're going to keep it rolling if that's cool with you, caller.
Absolutely.
Caller, thank you again, so sincerely, both for the phone call where I got to learn so much about so many different aspects of your life, and specifically for getting in the ring and doing research in an area where I'm sure, as you said, a lot of people can't handle the emotion of it, where it lends itself to frustration, to depression, to human stories, to red tape. But you've been in the ring over 15 years, and you're doing it for the rest of us. Blows my mind. Thank you so much. And thank you to our producer, Andrea Quinn. Thank you to Shellshag for the theme music. If you want to know more about me, you can go to punchup.live/Chris Gethard. That has all my tour dates on it. I'm going all over the country, and I have fun doing it, and I would love to meet out there. If you have a story you think we need to hear and our call-in times don't work for you or you're having trouble getting through, 973-306-4676 is our voicemail line. You go ahead, you call 973-306-4676. Leave a voicemail. Figure out a way to get you on the show. We're on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. You can join our Facebook group. There's 35,000 members over there at Beautiful Anonymous, the community. The conversations surrounding episodes are lovely. It's Literally, the reason I'm still on Facebook is just so I can be part of that group. I think I'm not the only one. Anyway, thanks, everybody. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions.
Fun goose story. My
Yeah.
sibling decided, this is obviously when we were younger, pick up a goose for me so I could have it. My parents jokingly said if they caught a goose, I could have it. Do you know what mechanism they use for self-defense if they're captured?
No.
Shit everywhere. So my sibling learned that lesson the hard way.
How old was your sibling when your sibling tried to catch you a goose?
Like 8 or 9.
8 or 9 years old?
I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible. I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible. They were really trying to do something nice for me, but like...
No, it's amazing. So they pick up the goose, and what, does the goose start flapping around and shitting all over them?
Shit everywhere, like all over.
And there I imagine screaming in horror and shock.
It wasn't like the nice pellets you see where you're like, don't step in that. Like, this is like liquid shit everywhere.
No. Like, we humans have a natural revulsion to goose shit when it's dried up on the ground and it's got that combination of brown and green. Like, everybody who's seen it right now listening is going like, I don't want to think about it. But that's when it's dried out and hardened. Like, I can't imagine that it's more pleasant on its way out of the goose.
Yeah, it was very, very gross. But...
And what do your parents say to your sibling after they try to pick up like, because your parents did make they're joking around, but they validated the choice. So they have some responsibility on their shoulders.
Like, well, you learned that lesson the hard way. We hope you won't try that again.
You did that thing we told you could do, and now never do it again.
Yeah.
Ooh, that car ride home stinks, right? In many ways. Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.